One of the first things that I want people to know about you is a little bit about kind of like your other job, if you will.
Oh, sure.
So Nan, do you mind if I tell them a little bit about this?
No, please do.
So in addition to helping people as an executive coach and really helping them work through that negative self-talk and really getting clear on who they are and being in alignment, Nan is also in the multi-level marketing industry. And I think we all have opinions, right, about MLM, right? Lots of opinions about MLM. You know, the thing about MLM that I find so interesting is that it is, I think, one of the most demanding career paths that you can actually choose. Because you're constantly exposed and you're constantly out there, right, trying to grow your business. So you have no doubt had to overcome negative self-talk in order to do what you do on the MLM side. So in terms of, we looked at this about a week ago. You know, over 90% of people who go into MLM don't make it a year. And you, on the other hand, have reached a really high level of the company that you're with.
Right. Right, I'm a gold member of Young Living Essential Oils.
So where does that put you, like in percentage-wise, in the?
Probably about the top 3% of the company.
So, and that means then you have downline as well.
A lot of downline.
And then when you see people come in, I'm just curious because we're going to get into some other things.
Absolutely.
But I'm just curious, when you see people come in, when do you see the negative self-talk pop up the first time, typically?
Immediately. It's the first thing they do. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get through it. I can't do it. I'm going to fail. It's the first thing that comes out of the mouth.
Well, and with MLM, since you're constantly doing sales, right? You're constantly reaching out. You're hearing no, 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 no all the time from folks, right? So that's constant, which just reinforces the self-talk, the self-doubt.
A lot of rejection and a ton of rejection, and that's one of the biggest problems in MLM. As soon as they get rejected, as soon as you hear no, that's it, they quit.
Yeah. So I wanted to share with everybody my experience with some negative self-talk, right? So earlier this morning when I introduced Phil on stage, he shared with all of you that we were in the same coaching program together back in, I think it was 2009. And at the end of that year, there was a competition, and we all presented on stage, 5 of us, presented on stage about our business accomplishments. Now, this particular event had about 700 attendees in the audience. So I was in front of a room of about 700, and it was me and Phil and 3 other business owners, and we had to present about our business success. And I hadn't been on stage for, I don't know, probably like 5 years prior to that. I really avoided stage. Well, that's not true. I talked at some corporate conferences, but I always felt so safe talking at a corporate conference because I could just hide behind my intellectual knowledge of what I was teaching. So I did speak at some of those, but in terms of like speaking about my business or anything related to being a small business owner, never. And so when I had that opportunity, I really wanted to do it, but my negative self-talk was all over me because I was afraid of being bullied again. And for some of you who were at Insight Edge, you heard me talk about my experiences with that. So here I am, like scared to death to get up on stage, and I've got all this negative self-talk about it, right? So I get up there, I do a great job. I got like 70% of the audience vote. I was so excited. I get this award. I get the photo. Everything's going great. And as I'm leaving, if the people are congratulating me, and then the room went to break. They broke the room for a 30-minute coffee break. And before I even knew it, I'm like, here I am with my gorgeous crystal award, and I'm just on cloud 9. And next thing you know, I get surrounded by about 10 women. And they just proceed to tear me to shreds. Wow. One woman put her hand in my face and she said, "You need to fix all of this and all of this before you ever get on stage again." And another woman said, "You are the biggest bitch I have ever met." Now, I hadn't even really met her. I had only been on stage.
It's true. No.
So it went on and on and on until I just started bawling. But But my worst fear, all that negative self-talk, so I want you to talk about this. So all my negative self-talk of all the reasons I didn't want to get on that fucking stage happened.
Right. So first you attracted it.
Okay, so talk about, right? So first I attracted it.
You attracted it because you didn't resolve it. If it was resolved,
I attracted it because I didn't resolve it.
Right, probably because you didn't resolve it. The universe will keep bringing it up, bringing it up, bringing it up until you resolve it. It's like the ugly thing in the closet you don't want to see until you resolve it. So until you resolve it. And then when you got in front of all these women, you were what? You were triggered.
Oh yeah.
This is like, oh my gosh, like all of a sudden, this is what happens, guys. We hear, right? We hear something that they say, something we see, something we smell, all those senses that David just talked about. And once those senses are triggered in a certain way, then you're right? You can't breathe.
That's the official term for it.
Yeah, you can't breathe, you can't see, you're sweating, you don't know where you are, you're out of body, you can't think.
Oh, I knew where I was. I was under the covers calling mommy.
Well,
I went right back to my hotel room and called my mom.
And this is why it's so important to look at that stuff and not have it come back and hit you in the face, especially, as you start getting out of your comfort zone more and more and more, then those things are going to come up.
So, yes, I was getting out of my comfort zone. Yes, I was repeating a pattern that had happened,
yes.
Right? So it was like the same pattern came back again. In my case, then I just didn't speak again for a year. So then I regressed back, right? Because I had the very experience and I was like, see what happens? See what happens when I put myself out there?
Yeah, so it's important to figure out the triggers and break the patterning so you don't do it again.
Can you give me some examples of like so in that case, those women, are you saying the women were triggers or was there something else that triggered before that?
You were triggered by something. So in other words, if you have a smell or you're something you heard, like a lot of times you heard back in your childhood, right, in the subconscious mind, you weren't good enough or whatever it is. All of a sudden somebody else says that, it's not the person saying it, else you wouldn't respond to it, you wouldn't react to it. All of a sudden it's like you're triggered by it. It's hitting that memory and it's bringing it back up again, but recognize it's bringing it back up again so it can be resolved.
Interesting. So, okay, so I just want to make sure I understand that clearly. So when that thing that's repeating happens again, it's almost like you regress back to all the times you felt it before and it just all comes forward.
It's all those senses like David was talking about earlier. You can smell, your taste means you can see something, you can smell something. Right? It can be a positive too. When you smell a turkey and you walk into a house, smell turkey at grandmother's house, it's a positive experience. But if you had a negative experience at grandmother's house, and you smelled the turkey, it wouldn't be so pretty. So.
Interesting. So one of the things that happens, I think, especially, and this is going to be true for those who are getting out doing executive roundtables, power breakfast, whenever you're putting, so to me, one of the most vulnerable places that we are is literally under those lights. I mean, it's, we often feel that we are under those lights, but literally when you're in the front of a room leading an executive roundtable or a power breakfast or speaking at a conference, doing a workshop, you're visible. And by visible, then you often feel vulnerable. And then something can happen, which then sets you into that trigger. So you have something called the universal pause that you taught me, which is great. So I want you to talk a little bit about the universal pause, because I think that's something that everybody can take with them and start using.
It's the simplest thing. All it is by saying, even if you just sit back and say, that's interesting. That's all you need to say. Even if you just say, that's interesting, it sets the body back a little bit, so you're back in observation mode.
We'll see more about being an observation. Well, talk more about that, being reaction versus observation. Because I think a lot of folks think they're being observant, but really they're just actually in an emotional reaction.
Right. I mean, obviously we just talked about a trigger. If you're just triggered, you are totally in a reaction mode. Versus sitting back, being in observation mode, you're able to see what is causing it, what the problem is, and just breathing through it. And then even taking some notes on exactly what it was that was creating the problem, so we can take a deeper look at it.
So I know that's something that you do with folks. You actually have them, every time they get triggered by something, take a lot of notes so that they can then go back and look for patterns in that on the same things that create.
Yes, go to Walgreens, get your 33-cent little notebook, or they have pretty journal ones for $2, and throw it in your purse, and then as you're going along your day, if there's things that are really you're reacting to, that's not about them, that's about you. So write down everything that they're saying, what you're smelling at the time, what surroundings, all of that, what you're sensing, so you can really start to figure out what it is.
So we hear it a lot. I mean, I think there's a lot of folks that talk about negative self-talk. What I think is interesting about what our conversations have been is about looking at all 5 senses.
Yes.
Because a lot of folks, they put all the 100% emotional on what you're feeling or what was said, but not looking on the total overall experience. And I assume that's because you're looking for those things that happened in the past that's continuing to recreate itself.
Right, and that's what helps me. Once my clients bring that to me, then I'm able to see what is in the past that is actually keeps triggering it, and then we can resolve it.
So one of the things that's happened for you, and I want to recognize you for this because your business has really changed. So would you share, if you're willing to share?
Sure.
You've had some businesses that haven't succeeded. Will you talk just a little bit about your own personal experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I can't say they haven't succeeded, but I mean, in the long run, I mean, even my equestrian business, I can remember at one point in my barn, right, I was saying, wow, what's going on here? I've got all clients that have a lot of money, but they don't care anything about their horses. And then I have all these clients that have no money, and they've got all this super talent, So I had nobody in the in-between pool. So I had people that didn't appreciate me, and I had all these people that appreciated me but had no money. And it's it was exactly what my mom said my whole life. Oh, those people don't appreciate you up here, and if you have no money, you can't succeed. And I remember just sitting in the aisle one day, looking and going, wow, look at what I manifested. This is unbelievable.
Isn't it? I mean, we really do.
It was whoa, this is an opening, and I says, all right, well, I got to change this. This is all what I manifest. This is everything from my childhood, all those limiting beliefs is creating this in my business. This is how I'm showing up. This isn't about my clients. This is about what I am projecting out there, and I'm attracting into my business. And it was successful, but I wasn't where I needed to be or where I wanted to be.
Where you want to be. I think that's really a good point, because for me, I noticed that, I'll get caught up in the busyness of growing the business, but there will be things that show up and I realize it's my belief that actually created that thing, that there's something I believe. And that's a tough thing. It's a really tough thing to think, to move past, I think, because we really are brought up so often in households where the problem is a problem that is external to you. People don't have jobs because the economy is bad. Or people have debt because they, have college debt. It's the college's fault. Everything is kind of this external thing that happens to us, and really we're actually creating that reality all the time based on our beliefs. So talk to me about, before we wrap up, I want to talk a little bit about people learning to trust their intuition, because I think when you've got so much negative self-talk going on, then you stop also listening to your intuition, and oftentimes that is the thing that can actually guide you in the right place.
Yeah, when we have all these negative beliefs, we're buried under all that. You can't find yourself. You imagine walking into a house with a bunch of packed boxes, right, when you're about to move. You can't find the kitchen. It's over there, but you can't find it.
I just moved a few months ago. I feel that analogy. That hurt.
It's over there, but you can't find it. So, when you're buried under that, you can't, you're second guessing yourself all the time. You're not trusting yourself. And the biggest thing with that is you're totally missing opportunities all the time, because, almost every day I ask, well, should I call this person now? Should I really ask constantly, not what I should be doing next, but what feels right. And I'm in that flow. And, I see people, they're so exhausted. And they're so exhausted because they're going against the flow. They're second guessing themselves all the time. And their mind chatter's going, oh, no, you should do that. Oh, no, I shouldn't do that. And they just back and forth all day, with that, and not just trusting themselves. And that's a real problem.
The stress and anxiety is exhausting. doing that, right? Of fighting your negative self-talk is exhausting, and then the constant not trusting your gut instinct, and then thinking you're going to do that, and then second guessing yourself. And when you're really buried under all of that too, right? You actually, when you're buried under the negativity and the fear, you actually don't know if it's just your instinct telling you, oh, I shouldn't do that. My gut tells me not to do it, and really it's the fear, and you can't separate out from the two.
Yeah, and what's sad about that is the opportunities that are missed. Because when you get that feeling of, you know what, I should pick up the phone now, or I should go to the grocery store before I go over to Office Max, or whatever it is, there's probably a reason for that. You should follow that instinct.
Yeah.
And that's what right? That's what nature does all the time. So it's built in. All of a sudden now that we use it, it's like some freaked out thing. You know, it shouldn't be. It's something that's built into us. That's our inner GPS that we should follow all the time. It's given to us as a tool to use it.
Well, we are part of nature.
Right, not to
despite everything we do to put anything between us and nature, we are part of nature.
Absolutely.
It's a really good point.
Absolutely.
I love that. So you have a book that you wrote about all of this?
I do. It's called Stress Less: Transforming Stress to Success. And today I'm giving it to everybody who stops by my booth.
Cool.
That they can get sign up for it and get a free copy, and also a paper about 3 ways entrepreneurs sabotage their success, a little bit of what we're just talking about.
That's awesome. So stress less. Who doesn't want to stress less? So thank you for gifting that book to everybody. I really appreciate it. I know you've had some great conversations with folks already, and thank you for helping people overcome their negative self-talk, because
you're so welcome.
It is a big problem. And I think, one of the things I wanted one of the reasons I wanted to share with not just Nan with all of you, but share some of my stories with all of you, is because one of the things that people say to me all the time is, Angelique, I wish I was like you, not, business-wise, but I wish I was like you. I would just get out there and go do things, and I wish I didn't have that negative self-talk. And I wanted to share this with all of you because I want you to know that I have had boatloads, like yachtfuls of, negative self-talk. And when things come up that trigger me on unresolved issues, my negative self-talk comes back in. The only difference is I've chosen to work on it and find ways to work with folks who can help me through that. But it isn't that I don't have it. Like, I wasn't born with some genetic DNA difference that I don't have negative self-talk. In fact, I probably have, being as visible and exposed as I am, I deal with a lot of, unfortunately we live in a society today that if you're even slightly visible or slightly out there, especially with social media, folks feel that they can say anything. Like, everybody thinks their opinion you should constantly be shared with the whole world, even if they're negative, right? And so when you start stepping out, you're more exposed, and so actually more negative self-talk can come up, because not everybody's going to like everything that you say or do. Phil used to write a column for a major publication, and every time he wrote the column, he'd get 1,000, complimentary notes and at least 3 pieces of hate mail. As soon as you step out as a thought leader, not everybody's going to agree with you. You're going to get things that come at you that you may very well attract because you haven't resolved it. Your negative self-talk's going to come up, and you can either choose to deal with it, or you can let it actually regress you. And there were times in my life where I allowed it to regress me, and there are times in my life now where I'm actively dealing with it. So I really wanted to share that. So thank you for sharing the book with everyone. I so appreciate it.
Thank you for having me here and what you're doing here. It's just amazing. I hope that everybody gets so much out of it, and we go home without sabotaging ourselves and without having that self-negative talk. So I hope that helps everybody a little bit.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.